I was just completely over it. I was so exhausted.
Being like just a quiet girl meant that people just didn't realise that I could have a learning disability.
I've had to go most of my life without understanding this fundamental part of myself.
Just everything, it makes me so dysfunctional.
The way they teach is not how my brain works.
I was always sort of pretending to be getting along fine.
There's something different about that girl.
Did you know that women receive a neurodivergent diagnosis significantly later than men? The average age for an ADHD diagnosis in boys is 7. For girls, it's their late 30s. Receiving a late diagnosis can take a huge toll on your relationships, your academic progress, and on your mental health. This is something that happened to Sinead. After battling with mental health issues all through school, Sinead was diagnosed with ADHD mere weeks away from her final year of university.
When I went into college and uni, and I started being friends with people that hadn't known me my whole life since nursery, I got quite a few people asking me oh, do you have ADHD too? And I'd be like, oh no. I was going to drop out of uni. I was doing really, really badly. The GPs here said, have you ever considered getting an ADHD diagnosis? It was such I felt like I could finally exhale once I'd gotten the ADHD diagnosis, because it was it just confirmed that all of the feelings of alienation and feeling different, there's reasons as to why I felt that way. It's not just me being dramatic or stupid or weak. Absolutely astounds me the fact that I managed to not only just function but live as long as I did, feeling the way that I did.
Despite grateful for her diagnosis, Sinead can't help feeling let down by primary care workers for not picking up on it sooner.
It's really hard to get an ADHD diagnosis and not think back to the little Sinead and how much she was really struggling and hated herself. And I feel like all of that pain and suffering could just have been avoided. I do know a lot of girls that had very late diagnosis, and we could only imagine how much easier their life would have been and how much pain they wouldn't have had to have gone through if they had had an earlier diagnosis. I think that me getting diagnosed at age 20, which is a very late diagnosis, I think that me being a woman has everything to do with that late diagnosis.
Waiting until university to be diagnosed isn't a unique experience. Abby was diagnosed with dyslexia in her first year of uni.
Because I went to go and get DSA support from the government, but I couldn't without full diagnostics.
Unlike Sinead, Abby has been aware of her neurodivergence for a long time.
I've been screened from year 2 and then all the way up through my education. I always knew I was dyslexic. I always knew that I found this stuff so much harder.
Having waited 10 years for a dyslexia diagnosis, Abby believes other things may have been missed.
I definitely do think I might have ADHD. My brain sometimes works at 1,000,000 miles an hour and I speak so fast that I jumble up my words so badly. That I very much went under the radar because they didn't see me messing around or being really hyperactive. They just saw me just sitting there. If I was a boy, I'd definitely be diagnosed by now, definitely.
Pursuing an ADHD diagnosis takes time, but it also takes perseverance.
I thought she'd really understand me when I said that I had ADHD and that I needed support, and she turned around and really dismissed it and said that she couldn't spoon feed me information.
Evie, like Abby and Sinead, didn't get diagnosed with her ADHD until she reached university. She believes this ruined her high school experience.
I found high school really lonely. I used to hide in the library a lot. I became best friends with the librarians. As I became a teenager and all of my peers were growing up around me, they were doing things like going to parties and stuff like that, and it used to overwhelm me so much that I just wouldn't. And then I started losing a lot of friends because I didn't understand why I couldn't click with them. I felt like it was just because I was an anxious teenager or because nobody liked being with me, and it was actually that there was a communication gap.
Evie had long suspected she had ADHD, but the dismissal from her teachers delayed the support that she desperately needed.
Being like just a quiet girl meant that people just didn't realise that I could have a learning disability. My homework was never ever in on time, and my school diaries were always far behind. I never got consent forms for trips in, and everyone always just thought it was because I was so well behaved that it was just that I wasn't smart enough. Whereas now I am, and my A-level grades, once I realised I had ADHD and was accommodating my learning so low, I got A's. So it wasn't that I wasn't incapable, it was just that I didn't have that support structure in place.
And ADHD wasn't the only thing she was struggling with.
The same time I was diagnosed with ADHD, I was diagnosed with dyspraxia, which makes so much sense because I was always the clumsy kid growing up. Everyone else used to just find it funny and think it was me being quirky. I'm too nervous to be seen going running because I will literally, the chances that I'll fall are really, really high. And also being aware that that's a heightened risk is really quite scary.
What's also scary is the gender gap in the diagnoses of neurodevelopmental conditions. Blandine French is a psychologist and researcher for the University of Nottingham. After receiving a late ADHD diagnosis herself, she's dedicated to closing this gap.
Being female is trickier for many reasons. One of them being that depending on the type of condition, you will not get picked up as easily. Female demands are different. We are expected to be calmer, there's a lot of peer pressures on how we're supposed to be around friends, in our family, what the responsibilities that we have, and that puts a lot more pressure on women. A lot more pressure to mask, to pretend that everything is okay, or to try to fit in, or to not want to be different. You might not see the meltdowns, you might not see the very strong behavioral difficulties, but you will see the fidgeting, the nail biting, the looking at the window, the fact that they're really struggling with friends in a playground. There will be signs, if you pay attention, there will be signs, and there may not be the signs that might make you think, oh gosh, she's really struggling. You will see that there's something different about that girl.
Expectations for women to be more quiet and amenable have a big role in explaining the lack of female diagnoses. But there are other factors at play.
It's been led by, a very strong male research team for many years. There's definitely a bias in how research has been conducted. The research question has been focused, the research measures that have been developed.
By not being invited to the discussions, women have been left unheard and unsupported, having a damaging impact on their well-being.
Women have been forgotten, definitely. It was always there. And when you look back, especially when you get a diagnosis as an adult, you look back and you can see that there were real struggles.
And many women are still left struggling. Ollie Burtonshaw has been on the waiting list for an autism diagnosis for the last 3 years. They were once one of the brightest pupils in their class, but living with a hidden disability had devastating effects.
I was 16 when I dropped out of school. I was doing my A-levels at that point. And I remember as early as primary school, just really being super hyper aware of different people's expectations of me. That led to me learning how to mask very heavily from an early age. It really stunted my ability to be authentic around other people.
Masking their autism made it tricky to diagnose, an excuse frequently used when explaining this gender gap. But Ollie thinks there are other reasons they flew under the radar.
I feel like our idea of autism and what it looks like on the outside is hugely wrapped up in autism in boys and in men, which autism can look very different in women. And I just didn't have any knowledge of that, and neither did most of the people in my life. There were some clear traits that I had that anyone educated on autism and what it can look like in girls would have been able to pick up on. And that feels like a real loss, that I've had to go most of my life without understanding this fundamental part of myself. I'm in my 20s. These are pretty vital years of my life that I'll probably have to wait at least another 5 until I can get that help and that support.
Now, being aware of their disabilities, things are looking up.
I feel like I understand myself a little bit more. I have a bit more sympathy with myself.
I've just grown to be like, this is who I am. I can't read or write, and it is what it is.
I feel like having the diagnosis has given me the language and the research to really back up my interactions, and then also if I'm having a bad day, I can just be like, it's fine, it's a bad day, rather than get really self-critical.
Being different doesn't have to consistently be a disadvantage or a struggle, and that the things that make you unique are the things that you should embrace and hold on to and fight for.
There's a very strong new wave of female-focused research, and there's been more calls and there's been more awareness, there's more conferences. So hopefully it will change for our children. You know, we're not there yet, but in the next 10 years, you know, I'd like to think that my kids will grow up in a really gender-friendly environment and it will be very different for them. I really believe that because everyone I've worked with in this field is really aware of this now and really working towards filling these gaps.
Many young girls are struggling, unaware that they're being held back by a disability. A diagnosis can get them support, but it can also help them understand themselves better. The delayed diagnosis of neurodivergent women is an overlooked issue, but with the help of people like Blandine, this gap can continue to close.